So a couple of things that I wanted to share as we start to reopen here, with the main goal, of course, being to keep everybody safe. What I wanted to do is just focus on the top 3 or so priorities where we're really focusing a lot of our attention to make sure that we do this right. And number 1 is testing. So we have, through supply chain issues and a number of others, you've seen that testing capacity ramp up in Houston and in Harris County over the last weeks and months now. That supply chain capacity is starting to loosen up. We're moving forward with a different strategy now on testing in the city. And basically, the situation now allows us to look at this entire geography, think about all the risks that are out there, starting with our vulnerable and at-risk communities, thinking about that from a socioeconomic standpoint, where we've seen outbreaks in the past. Just about every data point you can imagine to cut and understand where the priorities are, we'll do that. And we'll develop now a number of different sites around the city to make testing available, to make it easy for people in those communities to get tested. And that plan will start to roll out next week. So you'll see more of this in the next week or so. And then we will systematically, in some degree of priority order, build those sites out across the city. Now, the needs are diverse, so you can expect that to come in fixed sites like you've seen so far, like the mayor has started in terms of mobile activity. I suspect we'll see a fair amount of that come in mobile capacity. But that's critical, and that's one of the main tools that we'll have to understand how we're doing through this recovery and make sure it's going the way it should. Now, testing alone is not enough. So as you've already heard, the piece that has to be matched with testing is contact tracing, or contact tracking, however you choose to say it. Now, that's a capability that, if you read the governor's report, there's going to be a statewide effort. We're now working with the state. As a matter of fact, I have a call first thing in the morning with the state to understand exactly what's happening there so that we can determine immediately how we fit into that plan and how much activity we need to initiate in the city on our own right now. And I think it's going to be a combination of those two things. Us jumping out, starting to build the capacity to do that and the capabilities of doing that, coordinating very closely with the county to make sure we're aligned on how we're doing all that, but with the vision to ultimately connect to this system that will exist statewide on contact tracing. The reason, I think it's obvious, but I want everybody to keep in mind, the reason you need the two of these together is testing obviously identifies as you start to see additional contaminations out there or infections out there. Contact tracing allows you then to contain that to a small area so you don't get that wide community spread. So that's what we're after. The third thing I would identify that continues to be important and is really quite mature at this stage are the measures that we need to follow, both the leading and the lagging measures, to make sure, again, that this whole system is working, and if we need to make any adjustments, we're prepared to do that as early as possible. So you can think about the, all the things that you're used to seeing now, the number of new cases a day, all the way through to the number of deaths. But I think the things that, as I think about a reopening strategy, the measures we're going to want to keep very close to us and understand very well is that hospital capacity, that ICU capacity, that critical equipment. It's looking at the supplies. Do we have 30, 60 days, plenty of supplies in terms of PPE and so forth. So those measures will be on the mayor's desk every morning, and we'll be tracking that to make sure we're staying in what I'd call the safe zone as we move through the reopening process. The final thing I'll mention today, let me just say this. I could stand up here and talk about 15 different initiatives that are happening, and I mention that just out of respect for the people that are working very hard on all those plans, but I'm just going to mention one more today. And that is, as businesses are thinking about returning to work, the city, the county, has been working with the Greater Houston Partnership and chambers across the city to produce some guidelines that help give that guidance to businesses as to what they need to consider as they come back. Now that work is also quite mature. It's been active for a couple of weeks now, and you can actually find this with all those contributions on the GHP website. And actually, what you're looking for is under the title of Reopen Houston Safely. So we've looked at this. We very much like what we see under it. I've looked at some plans of individual companies that follow these guidelines and what they've produced. They're absolutely terrific. And for anybody looking for a resource on the business side, thinking about the implications of going back, this is a great resource. It's broken down into 15 workplace principles, which you'll see now. Starting tomorrow, you'll actually be able to see by segment. Think about restaurant owners, or think about a major business like an oil and gas business going to work. You'll see those standards, best practices, and so forth laid out in that format that, again, I think will provide a very good tool. So lots more happening, and we'll update you as we go. Mayor, I'll stop there.